My name is Jake Morrison, and I am writing this from inside a metal box that smells like burnt copper. The aliens who put me here expected me to be screaming by now. Instead, my ribs hurt from laughing. I cannot make myself stop. None of us can. 6 hours ago, I was sitting at my communication panel on a small human ship called the Lighthouse. We were a diplomatic vessel, only 12 people on board, sent to make peaceful contact with whatever lived past the edge of our solar system. Earth had finally built a working faster-than-light engine, and the government wanted to wave hello before someone else waved first. The first sign of trouble was a blinking red dot on my screen, then another, then 40 more. Captain Henry Brooks leaned over my shoulder and said one quiet word that I will never forget. He said, "Oh." The ships came out of empty space like sharks coming out of black water. Massive things, each one bigger than a city, painted in dull gray metal that swallowed the starlight. There were 9 of them. The smallest was the size of a mountain. I counted them 3 times because my brain refused to accept the number on the first try. A voice came through every speaker on our ship at once. It did not come through my translator. It came directly into my head and the heads of everyone else in perfect English. The voice was deep and slow, and it pressed down on my chest like a heavy hand. "You are in the territory of the Galactic Empire. Your species has trespassed. Witness our power, then beg." I looked at Captain Brooks. He looked at our pilot, a woman named Lucy Carter. Lucy had her hands frozen above the controls. None of us moved. None of us breathed. The voice in our heads was the most frightening thing any human had ever heard, and it was working exactly as the aliens wanted it to work. Then one of the giant ships fired. A beam of white light, thick as a river, shot out and struck our outer mining station on the asteroid we called Big Pete. Big Pete was where we kept our spare fuel, our backup food, and a small crew of 3 engineers who were on a 6-month rotation. The beam touched the rock, and the rock simply stopped existing. There was no explosion. There was no fire. The asteroid was there, and then it was a cloud of glowing dust, and then it was nothing at all. The voice spoke again. "Surrender your vessel, bow your heads, weep for mercy. This is the path of every species that meets us. There is no other path." I waited for Captain Brooks to do exactly that. I waited for him to bow his head. I was ready to bow mine. My hands were already shaking. But Captain Brooks did something I did not expect. He cleared his throat. He pressed the open channel button on the main console. Then he said in a calm voice, as if he was ordering coffee at a diner, "Excuse me. Did you guys not get our radio messages? We sent 12. We even sent a polite one in your direction last Tuesday. You could have called first. We would have moved the good rocks." There was a long silence. The voice in my head paused. I felt it pause. It was like the alien speaker did not know what to do with what it had just heard. Lucy turned in her chair very slowly. She looked at the captain. She said, "Sir, did you just complain to the giant battle fleet about not calling first?" The captain shrugged. Big Pete had my favorite mug on it, the one shaped like a frog. I felt something strange happen inside my chest. It started as a tight squeeze, the same squeeze you feel when you almost trip down the stairs. Then it twisted and changed direction and came out as a small choked noise from my throat. I was laughing. I was laughing while a fleet of city-sized ships pointed weapons at our hull, and I could not stop. Lucy started laughing too. She covered her mouth with both hands, but it was no use. Soon every person on the bridge was making some version of the same noise. We were also crying, some of us. We were also terrified, but we were laughing, and the laughing was louder than the crying. The voice in my head returned, but it sounded different now. It sounded confused. "Your reaction is not correct. Repeat. Your reaction is not correct. You are showing the wrong response. Adjust your behavior." Captain Brooks wiped his eyes. "Buddy, I am sorry, but you cannot just tell people their feelings are wrong. That is not how feelings work. Has anyone ever told you that? Adjust your behavior, show the proper fear. We have ended your asteroid, we will end your ship next. Lucy raised her hand like a student in class. Quick question. If you end our ship, who will you talk to? Because right now you are the only people in our solar system who have spoken in full sentences today. We were going to play cards later. Want to join? I do not know what kind of training the HFY Empire gives its officers, but I am sure none of it covered being invited to a card game. The voice was silent for almost a full minute. Then it said, in a much smaller tone, "You will be brought aboard for evaluation. Do not resist." A blue beam of light surrounded our ship. Our engines went quiet. Our screens went dark. The lighthouse was being pulled into the nearest mountain-sized vessel like a fish on a line. None of us could do anything to stop it. But none of us were begging either. The bay doors opened and we floated inside. Captain Brooks turned to look at us. His face was pale. His hands were trembling, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Listen to me. We are not soldiers, we are not heroes. We are scientists, pilots, and one cook who specializes in pancakes, but we are also human beings. Whatever happens next, we stay together. We stay kind to each other. And if we are scared, we say so out loud because hiding it makes it worse. Understood?" We all nodded. Then he added, "Also, if any of you can keep making jokes, please do. I think it confuses them. And confused enemies are slower enemies." The doors of our ship hissed open. Standing in front of us was a row of soldiers, each one tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes set in 2 pairs above a mouth filled with small, flat teeth. They wore black armor that absorbed the light. Their leader was even taller, with a silver collar around his throat that I would later learn marked him as an overcommander. His name was ZHK Tao. He looked at us the way a man looks at a strange insect on his dinner plate. "Humans," he said in a deep, slow voice, "you will follow, you will be silent, you will obey." Captain Brooks gave a small, polite nod. "We will follow, we will obey within reason. But silent, sir, with the greatest respect, you have clearly never met a human before." ZHK Tao stared at him. Lucy walked past the captain and stuck out her hand for a handshake. The overcommander did not take it. She shrugged and put her hand back in her pocket. "First time meeting a new species. Yeah, it is awkward for everyone. You will get used to it." A guard pushed her gently forward with the back of his weapon. We were marched down a hallway with low ceilings and walls that pulsed with a faint humming sound. The hum was meant to make us feel small and helpless. I think it was working on my body because my legs felt like jelly, but my mouth, somehow, was still working. I leaned toward our cook, a kind older man named Walter Hayes, and whispered, "Walter, are you okay?" Walter whispered back, "I forgot to turn off the oven." I made a noise that was somewhere between a sob and a giggle. Walter looked at me with a small, sad smile. "I am joking, Jake, mostly. The oven is fine, I think." A guard turned around and hissed at us in his own language. The translator on my collar said, "Quiet, no noise, quiet." Walter looked up at him and said, "Sorry, nervous habit. We talk when we are scared, try it sometime, it actually helps." The guard did not respond, but his second pair of eyes blinked at a different speed than his first pair. I think that was the alien version of being startled. We were brought into a wide room with high ceilings and tall pillars. Overcommander ZHK Tao stood on a raised platform. Below him was a strange chair made of black metal and silver wire. Each of us was placed in a chair, one by one, our wrists held by soft glowing bands that did not hurt but would not let us move. ZHK Tao began to speak. His voice filled the room. "You have witnessed our power. You have seen the end of your asteroid. Your home world will be next unless you give us the surrender of your species in full. You will speak the words. You will weep the words. You will know your place. This is the way of every species that has met the HFY. There is no other way." The room went quiet. He waited for us to break. I waited too. I waited for someone to start crying. I waited for someone to beg. I expected it. Some part of me even wanted it, because at least then this would feel like a normal nightmare. Instead, Captain Brooks raised his head and said very calmly, "Sir, may I ask a question?" ZHK-Tal's 4 eyes narrowed. "You may speak." "How long has the Virathari Empire been doing this routine?" ZHK-Tal puffed up with pride. 40,000 of your years. We have shown our power to 1,847 species. Each one has bent the knee within the first hour. The captain whistled softly. "That is a long time to do the same job. Have you ever thought about taking a vacation? Not the Empire, you, personally." The room went absolutely silent. Lucy bit her lower lip so hard I saw a small drop of blood. She was trying so hard not to laugh that her shoulders were shaking. Walter coughed into his elbow, and I knew he was hiding the same thing. ZHK-Tal stepped forward. His voice grew louder. "You will fear us." Captain Brooks tilted his head. "I do fear you. I am very afraid right now. My heart is beating so fast I can feel it in my teeth, but that is not the same thing as obeying you. Those are two different things, sir. Has anyone ever told you that those are two different things?" ZHK-Tal lifted his hand. A guard stepped forward holding a thin metal rod that crackled with white sparks. The rod was meant for us. I did not know what it would do, but I knew it would be bad. And then the strangest thing happened. A small Virathari soldier, much younger and shorter than the others, standing near the wall, made a tiny sound. It was a soft, choked, snorting noise. Just one. He was looking at Captain Brooks. He had heard the joke about the vacation. Every alien in the room turned to look at the young soldier. His 4 eyes went very wide. He stiffened against the wall like he was trying to disappear into it. ZHK-Tal stared at him for a long time. Then the overcommander turned back to us, and for the first time, I saw something other than anger in his face. I saw worry. "Take them to the holding cells," he said, his voice tight. "All of them, separate them, and remove that soldier from this chamber. He requires medical examination." As the guards lifted me from the chair, I caught the eye of the young alien soldier. He was still looking at us. He was still pressed against the wall, and although his face was strange and gray and not at all human, I could see in his 4 wide eyes the same look I had seen in the eyes of every child who has ever heard a joke they were not supposed to laugh at. He was holding something inside that he had never felt before, and he did not know what to do with it. I gave him a small smile as the guards pulled me past him. I did not say anything. I did not need to. Whatever the Virathari Empire had planned for us, I had a feeling, deep in my chest where the laughter was still bubbling, that they had not planned for this. They had not planned for us at all. They put me in a small room with gray walls and one dim yellow light in the ceiling. The door slid shut behind me with a soft hiss, and I was alone for the first time since the giant ships had appeared on my screen. I sat down on the floor because there was no chair. There was no bed either. There was only a small metal bowl in the corner that I assumed was for water, and a small drain in the floor that I tried not to think about. For a long time I did nothing. I just sat. My laughter from before had drained out of me, leaving behind something heavy and sore. My hands were shaking. My eyes felt hot. I missed my mother. I missed my apartment in Houston. I missed my cat, who was probably sitting on the windowsill at home, wondering where his food was. I told myself out loud, "Jake, you are okay. Jake, you are still here. Jake, you are not alone. The others are nearby. You will see them again." Saying my own name helped. I do not know why. It just did. After what felt like many hours, the door opened. A different alien stepped inside. He was thinner than the soldiers, and his skin was a paler gray. He wore a long white robe instead of armor, and his 4 eyes had a tired look. He carried a small flat device in one hand. "I am Inquisitor Vassorin," he said. His voice was soft, too soft, the kind of softness you use right before you do something cruel. "I am of the Quelmorum caste, the Fear Architects. We are the ones who break minds. We are very, very good at our work. Your species will be the 802nd I have personally broken. I have done this for 200 of your years. I looked up at him. I tried to make my face brave. 200 years. Wow, you should really retire, pension yourself out, take up a hobby. He did not react to the joke. He simply pressed a button on his flat device. The light in the ceiling changed color. The walls grew dim. A strange smell, sweet and sharp at the same time, filled the room. This is the first stage, he said. It is called the hollowing. You will sit alone for 72 of your hours. You will receive no food. You will receive only water. You will see no other living being. The light will not change. The temperature will not change. You will hear nothing. By the end, every species we have studied loses its grip on time, on self, and on hope. You will speak when I return. You will weep. You will plead. He turned and walked out. The door hissed shut. The light stayed dim. The smell stayed in the air. I waited some more. After about 3 hours, I realized something. I realized that being alone with my own thoughts was not actually that bad. I had been alone before. I had been alone many times. I lived alone. I worked night shifts at a satellite station back home, where sometimes I did not see another person for 3 days. The Virathari did not know this about humans. They thought we were always in groups. They thought silence would break us. But I was a man who had once binge-watched an entire show about cake decorating in one sitting. I was a man who could sit still and stare at a wall and be perfectly fine. The hollowing was not torture. The hollowing was Tuesday. So I did what I always did when I was bored. I started talking to myself. I started by telling myself the entire plot of every movie I had ever seen, in the order I remembered them. Then I sang. I sang loudly and badly. I sang every song I half remembered from school. I sang the national anthem. I sang the song my mother used to sing while she cooked. I sang a song from a commercial about car insurance. I made up new songs. I named the corners of my cell. The top left corner I named Carl. The top right corner I named Beatrice. The bottom left was Officer Mustard. The bottom right was simply Bob because Bob did not need a fancy name. I gave them all backstories. Carl was a retired sailor. Beatrice was Carl's wife and was tired of his stories. Officer Mustard was their nosy neighbor. Bob was a quiet philosopher. I performed a full play with my 4 corners. It was about a dinner party where Officer Mustard got too drunk and revealed a secret about Beatrice's past. It went on for 2 acts. I played all the parts. It was, I admit, the best work I had ever done. When the door finally opened, I was in the middle of teaching Bob the meaning of true friendship. Inquisitor Vassorin stood in the doorway. His 4 eyes blinked slowly, the way an alien blinks when it is processing something it did not expect. "You are still talking," he said. "Yes." "You have been talking for the entire 72 hours. Was it really that long? Time really flies when you are putting on a play." "You have not slept." "I slept a little. I dozed during Act 1. Officer Mustard's monologue went on too long. That was my fault as the writer." The Inquisitor stared at me. His mouth opened slightly. His mouth closed. He looked at his flat device. He shook the device. He looked at it again. "This is impossible. The readings show no breakdown. No despair, no collapse. You have been alone in a sealed room for 3 days and you are reporting that you have been entertaining yourself." I shrugged. "We do that." "Who does that?" "Humans, we do that. Have you ever met a human child who is bored in the back seat of a car? They can build a whole society out of one toy and a snack wrapper. We are like that forever. You did not put me in a torture room. You put me in a quiet room. There is a difference." The Inquisitor stepped back. He spoke into a small device on his collar. He spoke fast and tight in his own language. The translator on my collar caught some of it. He was asking for permission to move to stage 2. He was being told to do so immediately. He turned back to me. "We will now try something stronger. You may not enjoy this one as much." He pressed another button. The walls of the cell faded away. They did not really fade. I knew the walls were still there, but suddenly I was no longer in the cell. I was standing on a hill looking down at my hometown. My old elementary school was below me. The sun was setting. It was beautiful. And then the sky split open. A beam of fire fell from the clouds. The school burned. The trees burned. The houses burned. I saw my mother running from her front door, looking up at the sky with a face full of fear. I saw my old neighbors. I saw the small park where I had broken my arm at age 8. I saw all of it, ending in detail so sharp I could feel the heat on my cheeks. The Inquisitor's voice spoke in my ear. "This is your world. This is what we will do. Beg us not to, beg us and we will spare it." I stood and watched. My eyes filled up with tears. The tears spilled over. I was crying hard. I felt my whole body shake. The image was so real. The grief was so real. I felt as if my mother had truly been killed in front of me. I sobbed. I sobbed out loud. The Inquisitor sounded pleased. "Yes, there it is. Now speak the words, surrender." I cried for another minute. Then I wiped my face with the back of my hand. I took a breath. I looked at the burning vision of my hometown, and through my tears I said something. My voice was wet and shaking, but I said it. "The packing was good." The Inquisitor paused. "What?" "The packing of your fake disaster movie. It was good. The slow zoom on my mother was a nice touch. But I have to be honest, the orange in the sky was a bit much. You leaned too hard into the fire color. A little blue smoke, a little gray ash, you would have had a real piece of art there. A solid B+, maybe even an A- on a good day." The vision flickered. The walls of the cell came back. Inquisitor Vassorin was staring at me with his mouth fully open. "You are crying," he said. "Yes." "You are also commenting on the artistic quality of the simulation." "Yes." "At the same time." "Yes." "This is not possible." I laughed. It was a small wet laugh. "Sir, I have cried at funerals while telling a joke about the casket. I have cried at hospitals while making my dying grandfather laugh so hard he had to ring the nurse. I have laughed at my own bad luck while standing in the rain after my car broke down on my birthday. We do this. Crying does not turn off the rest of us. It just makes the rest of us a little wetter." The Inquisitor sat down. He sat down right there on the floor of my cell, his white robe pooling around him. He stared at the wall. His 4 eyes moved at 4 different speeds, which I would later learn was the Virithari version of a panic attack. "In 200 years, he said softly, I have never failed to break a subject. I have broken creatures whose bodies are made of stone. I have broken minds that share a single thought across thousands of bodies. I have broken species that do not feel pain in any way I can measure. I have broken them all. And here you sit, a soft pink animal with no armor and no weapons, and you grade my work. Do you want feedback?" "What?" "Real feedback, not the joking kind. I think your problem is that you are good at fear, but fear is not the only door into a person. We have other doors. You keep banging on the fear door over and over, and you do not realize the rest of us is listening through the windows." He looked up at me slowly. "You are giving me advice on how to torture you better. I am giving you advice on how to understand a species you do not understand. There is a difference. One of them might save your job." He stood up. He looked at me one more time. Then he walked out of the cell without a word. I sat alone for a long time after that. The dim light stayed dim. The sweet, sharp smell stayed in the air. But something in the room had changed. I could feel it. I do not know how to explain it except to say that I felt, for the first time, that I was not the one being studied. I was the one studying them. A few hours later, the door opened again. But it was not the Inquisitor this time. It was a young soldier. The same young soldier who had made the small choked sound in the chamber the day we arrived. He had the silver mark of a low caste on his collar. He carried a tray of food. He set the tray down in front of me without speaking. He turned to leave. I said, "Hey." He froze. "What is your name?" He glanced over his shoulder. His 4 eyes flicked toward the door. He whispered, "I am not permitted to speak with prisoners." "Okay, then do not speak. Just nod or shake your head. Do you have a name?" He nodded slowly. "Is it a good name?" He thought about it. Then slowly he nodded again. "Mine is Jake. If we ever meet outside this room, that is what I am called, just Jake. You can use it, it is free." He looked at me. His 4 eyes had that same wide, curious look I had seen in the chamber. He opened his mouth as if to say something. He closed it. He opened it again. Then in a voice so soft I almost did not hear it, he said, "Telek. My name is Telek." He turned and left quickly, as if he had committed a great crime by saying his own name. I looked down at the food tray. It was a strange gray paste with green flecks. I picked up the spoon. I took a bite. It was disgusting, truly awful, the worst thing I had ever tasted. I smiled anyway, because for the first time since the giant ships had appeared, somebody on this ship had told me their name. There was a crack in the wall, a small one, but cracks grow. I ate every bite. The next day, they took us out of our separate cells and put us together in a larger room. I think they wanted to study how we behaved as a group. I think they expected us to fall apart. I think they expected us to fight each other, or beg each other, or break down into puddles on the floor. What they got instead was Lucy Carter doing impressions of every guard in the hallway, and Walter Hayes giving a cooking lesson to a security camera. The room was wide and round, with a low table in the middle and benches along the walls. There were 8 of us in there at first: Captain Brooks, Lucy, Walter, me, our medic Dr. Grace Fisher, our engineer Peter Lane, our biologist Ann Murphy, and a young pilot named Daniel Ross. The other 4 crew members were being held somewhere else. We did not know why. The first thing Captain Brooks did when we were all together was hug each of us, one at a time. He did not say much. He just put his hand on our shoulders and said, "You are doing well, keep going." Then he sat down and we all sat with him, and for a moment we just breathed. Then Lucy, of course, broke the silence. "Okay, so, quick check-in. Has anyone been waterboarded? Anyone? No, just emotional torment. Same. Cool, cool, cool." Dr. Fisher said, "They try to make me see my dead sister." We all went quiet. Dr. Fisher continued, "She has been gone for 15 years. They built a vision of her. They had her ask me why I never came to visit her grave." "Oh, Grace," Anne whispered. Dr. Fisher took a breath. Then she gave a tired half-smile. "I told the alien running the simulation that he had gotten her hair color wrong. She had red hair, not brown. I said, if you are going to stab a person in the heart, at least do your research first." He turned the simulation off in less than 10 seconds. I think I hurt his feelings. Walter started to laugh. Then we all started to laugh. It was not a happy laugh. It was the kind of laugh that comes out when there is nothing else left to do, when the alternative is to sink down and never come up again. It was a survival laugh. We held on to it like a rope. Peter, the engineer, said, "They tried to bury me alive. Mentally, I mean. They put me in a vision where I was in a coffin and the dirt was being shoveled on top. I am terrible with small spaces, by the way. They figured that out fast." "And?" Captain Brooks asked. Peter shrugged. "I told them, look, if you are going to bury me, at least give me a book. I am going to be down here for a while. I do not want to just lie around." We all laughed again. Daniel, the young pilot, who was only 23 and on his first deep space mission, said quietly, "I cried a lot. I am not going to lie. I cried for a really long time." Anne reached over and took his hand. "Daniel, sweetie, we all cried. You are allowed to cry. Crying is part of being a person. The aliens just do not know that crying is not the same as breaking." Daniel looked up at her with red eyes. Yeah, crying is just water. It does not mean you give up. It means your body is doing its job." Daniel nodded. He looked a little less small after that. Captain Brooks stood up. He looked around at the cameras in the corners of the room. He smiled at them, then he turned back to us. "All right, team, listen up. We do not know how long we will be here. We do not know what they will try next, but here is what I do know. We are still us. They have not changed us. They have not gotten to us, not yet. And the longer we stay us, the more they have to deal with us. Got it?" We all nodded. "Good. Now, Lucy, do your impression of Overcommander ZHK Tau. Do it loud. I want every camera in this room to pick it up." Lucy stood up like she was on a stage. She straightened her back. She made her face long and grumpy. She lowered her voice as deep as it would go and said, "I am Overcommander ZHK Tau. I have 4 eyes. They do not work together. I have been angry for 40,000 years. I have never had a snack." We laughed so hard that I thought my chest would burst. Even Dr. Fisher, who was usually the most serious among us, was wheezing. Then we heard something, a small sound, outside the door. It was a soft, choked snort, just one, just like before. We all looked at the door. Lucy held up her hand to silence us. The sound did not come again, but I knew it had been real. I had heard it. We all had. "There is a guard out there laughing," Captain Brooks said quietly. "Or trying not to," Anne said. "Either way," the captain said, "that is interesting." For the next several days we were kept in that round room. We slept on the benches. We ate the gray paste. We talked. We told stories about home. We argued about the best pizza topping. Walter and I had a serious fight about pineapple. He was wrong, for the record. We taught Daniel how to play a card game using flat pieces of food we tore from our paste bricks. We named the cleaning robot that came to the room twice a day. Lucy named it Greg. Greg was small and round and beeped softly. We started waving at Greg every time he came in. The first day, the guard outside the room watched us through the door slot with confused eyes. By the third day, Greg had a personality, a backstory, and a small song about him that Walter had written. On the 5th day, something happened. Greg came in for his usual cleaning. But this time, the guard who watched him through the slot, the same young guard who came every day, opened the door slightly and slid something across the floor toward Greg. It was a small, soft cloth. We all stared. The guard quickly closed the door. Lucy walked over and picked up the cloth. She looked at it, then she looked at us. He gave Greg a polishing cloth. "For Greg," Walter said. "For Greg," Lucy said. "That guard gave a gift," Anne said slowly, "to a robot, because he heard us talking about the robot like a person, and he wanted to be part of it." Captain Brooks sat down slowly. He rubbed his face with both hands. Then he looked up at all of us, and there was something in his eyes I had not seen before. It was hope, real hope. "They are listening," he said. "They are watching, and it is changing them." That night Telek came to my cell. I was alone again. They had separated us at the end of each day. He brought me my food tray like always, but this time he did not leave right away. "Jake," he said softly. He had been calling me by my name for 3 days now, when no one else was around. "Hey, Telek." He sat down on the floor across from me. He had never done this before. He looked at the door. He looked at the camera in the corner of my cell. He pointed at it. Then he tapped his throat where a small device was, and the camera light went dark. "You turned it off?" I asked. "For 3 of your minutes, no more. I will be punished if I do longer." "Okay, 3 minutes. What is up?" He took a deep breath. His 4 eyes looked sad. He said, "The Inquisitor has filed a report. He said your group is showing a new pattern. He used a word that has no good translation. The closest is wrongness. He is saying you are spreading wrongness to the soldiers who watch you." Wrongness. In our language, it is what we call laughter. We do not have a word for laughter that is good. We only have a word for laughter that is sick. Our healers used to treat laughter. They used to cure it. I sat very still. "Telek, is laughter sick where you come from?" He looked at me. His 4 eyes were so sad I felt my chest hurt. "It is not allowed," he said. It is a sign of broken thinking. I have not laughed since I was very small. My mother told me to stop when I was 4 years old. She said the masters would punish her if I kept doing it, so I stopped. We all stop. That is the saddest thing I have ever heard. Yes, I think it is too. We were quiet. Then he said very quietly, "Yesterday, when your friend did the impression of the overcommander, I made a sound. I could not stop it. It came out of me. It was small, but it was the first time in my life I have made that sound. And I am scared. Because now I know what it feels like and I want to feel it again. Jake, what is happening to me?" I looked at this thin gray alien soldier sitting on the floor of my cell, who had been told for his entire life that joy was a disease, and I felt something break inside my chest. Not in a sad way, in a way that opened things up. "Telek," I said gently, "you are okay. What happened to you is not bad. It is the most natural thing in the world. We call it laughing. We do it when something surprises us in a kind way, or when something is silly, or when we are scared and need to be brave. It is a gift. It is one of the best gifts a person can have. I do not want to lose my work. I do not want to be sent to the healers. They will fix me. They will make the laughing stop." I leaned forward. I lowered my voice even more. "Telek, listen to me. You will not lose anything. You will gain everything. You will gain a thing that has been locked up inside you your whole life. And the healers cannot fix what is not broken. Trust me." He looked at me for a long time. The silver collar around his neck made a small beep. He stood up quickly. "I have to go. The camera will come back." "Wait, Telek, before you go, I want to teach you something. It is a small thing. We call it a knock-knock joke." "What is a knock-knock joke?" "It is the simplest joke we have. Listen, I will teach you the whole thing. It goes like this. I say knock-knock. You say who is there. I say a name or a word. You say that word and then a question word, like who. So if I say knock-knock, you say who is there. I say lettuce. You say lettuce who. And then I say let us in. It is cold out here. Because lettuce sounds like let us. Get it?" His 4 eyes blinked at 4 different speeds. He did not get it, not even a little. But he repeated the words back to me. "Knock knock, who is there? Lettuce. Lettuce who? Let us in. It is cold out here." "It is cold out here. Yes, I will think about this." He hurried out of the cell. The door slid shut. The camera light came back on. I lay back on the cold floor and stared up at the dim yellow ceiling. I thought about Telek, going back to his bunk, repeating the joke to himself in his head. I thought about him trying to understand it. I thought about him maybe, just maybe, getting it 3 days from now, in the middle of the night, and making that small choked sound all alone in his sleeping space. The wall was cracking. Cracks grow. We were spreading something through this ship that had no defense against it. It was not a weapon. It was not a bomb. It was something far older and far stronger, and it had been part of us since before we knew our own names. 3 more guards started showing up at our door over the next several days, one at a time, each one sliding in some small thing, a cleaner brush, a smooth stone, a folded piece of cloth. They all gave their gifts to Greg, never to us. It was the only safe way for them. Greg the cleaning robot was the bridge between 2 worlds. Captain Brooks watched it all and said one quiet thing to me in private, while the others were sleeping. "Jake, they sent us out here to make peaceful first contact with whatever lived beyond our solar system. I think we are doing it, just not in the way anyone expected." On the 14th day of our captivity, they came for us with weapons drawn, not the soft glowing bands they had used before, real weapons, long thin guns with humming blue tips. 6 guards lined up outside the round room. The door opened. They told us to stand against the far wall. Captain Brooks stood up first. He held up his hands. "Easy now, we are not going to fight you. What is happening?" The lead guard, a tall, older Virithari with a scar across his second eye, said in flat voice, "You are being moved. By order of High Command. Your presence on this vessel has been declared a Category Omega event." "What does that mean?" Anne asked. It means, the guard said, that you are no longer considered prisoners. You are considered a contagion. You will be moved to a sealed research facility. There you will be studied. Then you will be ended. Daniel's face went white. Walter put his arm around the young pilot and held him close. Captain Brooks took a slow breath. All right, lead the way, but please tell whoever is in charge that we would like to know what we are accused of. The guard's 4 eyes shifted. He looked uncomfortable. He said, "You are accused of spreading the wrongness to my people. You have made 11 of our soldiers and 3 of our medical staff unfit for duty. They have begun to do the human thing. They have begun to make the choking sound. They have begun to refuse orders to harm prisoners. One of our young soldiers has spoken kindly to a cleaning robot in front of his unit. The wrongness is spreading. It must be stopped." We were marched down a long hallway. As we walked, I looked at the guards on either side of us. I knew their walking patterns by now. I had watched them through my cell door. The young one with the small twitch in his second eye was named Mark, in the rough translation of his name. The older one with the limp was named Driss. The one in the back, who always coughed once before speaking, was named Pell. I did not look at any of them directly, but I said, softly, just under my breath as we walked, "Knock, knock." The young one, Mark, made a sound, a small choked sound. He covered it with a cough. The older one looked at him sharply, but Mark kept walking, his face very still, his second eye twitching faster than usual. We reached a transport bay. A small ship was waiting. 10 more guards stood by the ship. They moved us inside and locked us into seats. The transport lifted off. Through a small window, I could see the giant Virathari vessel growing smaller behind us, and a smaller white research station growing larger ahead. The research station was a strange building. It was shaped like a flower, with 5 long petals coming off a central core. The transport docked at one of the petals. We were taken out and led through hallways that were brighter and cleaner than the warship. Everything in the research station smelled like a hospital. We were brought into a wide room with glass walls. On the other side of the glass were rows of seats, like a small theater. In the seats sat about 30 Virathari, all wearing white robes. The Quelmorim, the Fear Architects, the ones who had spent their lives breaking minds. In the front of the row was Inquisitor Vassarin, my old friend from the cell. Beside him sat a higher-ranking Virathari I had not seen before, a tall, thin one with a gold collar instead of silver. The tall, thin one stood up. She, I think, because the voice was higher than the others. She walked to a microphone. "Humans of the vessel Lighthouse, I am Chief Architect Mevria. I have been assigned to assess your case. Please be seated." We sat. The chairs were uncomfortable. Mevria looked at her notes. She looked up at us. She did not look angry. She looked tired, very tired. She looked like a doctor who has just seen a very strange test result and does not know how to write it down. "In 40,000 years," she said, "the Virathari Empire has classified 8 categories of threat. Category Alpha is military threat. Category Beta is technological threat. Category Gamma is biological threat. And so on down to Category Theta, which is environmental contamination. We have never had a Category Omega. The category was created last week, for your species." Captain Brooks raised a hand politely. "May I ask what Category Omega means?" "It means a threat to our way of being. A threat not to our power but to our shape. You are not strong. Your weapons are weak. Your numbers are small. By every standard measurement, you should be the easiest species we have ever met. And yet, Captain, you have done in 14 days what no enemy has done in 40,000 years. And what is that, ma'am? You have made our soldiers laugh." The room was silent. She continued, "Our scientists have studied your species for the past 2 weeks. We have run every test we have on you. We have reviewed every recording of every conversation in every cell. We have measured your brain activity. We have measured the brain activity of the soldiers who have been near you, and we have learned something we did not know was possible." She picked up a small device. The wall behind her lit up with a chart. The chart showed two lines. One was blue, one was red. The blue line went up and down sharply. The red line went up and down sharply too, but the two lines moved at the same time. This is a brain scan of one of your crew taken during a torture session. The blue line measures fear. The red line measures joy. In every other species we have ever tested, when one line goes up, the other goes down. They cancel each other out. The mind picks one and discards the other. This is the basic principle of fear control. We frighten you, joy decreases, you become easier to control. She pointed at the chart. But in your species, both lines go up at the same time, and both lines go down at the same time. You feel them together. You hold them in the same hand. You do not pick. You do not choose. You feel everything at once, and your mind does not break. Your mind becomes stronger. She set down the device. She walked closer to the glass. We do not have a name for this. The closest word in our language is paradox tolerance. The ability to hold two opposite things in the mind without picking one. We thought it was impossible. We built our entire civilization on the belief that it was impossible. Our control of every species we rule depends on this belief. If a species can feel afraid and unafraid at the same time, then we cannot rule them through fear. Do you understand what this means? Captain Brooks said softly, I think we are starting to. It means, she said, that if your way of feeling spreads to even one of the 800 species we currently control, our empire ends. Not in a war, in a slow turning away. A people who can laugh while afraid will not bow. A people who can grieve and love at the same time will not break under loss. A people who can hold contradiction will not accept the simple shapes of fear we offer them. They will see through us. And once they see through us, they will not look back. Walter raised his hand. Ma'am, may I ask a question? You may. Have you ever laughed? She froze, the whole room froze. She said very quietly, I have not. Would you like to? It is forbidden. The Quelmorim are healers of the wrongness. We do not carry it, we cannot carry it. Walter looked at her with that gentle old face he had. He smiled the way a grandfather smiles. He said, Ma'am, I have been a cook for 40 years. I have made breakfast for every kind of person you can imagine. The sad, the angry, the broken, the lost. And I have learned one thing. There is no such thing as wrongness. There is only people who have not been allowed to be themselves yet. You are not sick. Your soldiers are not sick. You are just people who have been told their whole lives that one of their colors does not exist. When you find out it does, of course you are scared. But the color was always there. It is in you. It has been waiting for 40,000 years. I watched Mavria's 4 eyes. I watched them carefully. They went still. Then they began to fill up with something, wetness. She turned her face away. She said in a tight voice, This conversation is over. Take them back to their holding rooms. We will continue tomorrow. The guards let us out. As we walked, I looked back through the glass. Mavria was still standing there with her back to the room. Her shoulders were shaking, just slightly, but shaking. Inquisitor Vassorin was standing too. He was looking at her shaking shoulders. His own face was very pale. Back in our holding rooms that night, the same young guard, Mark, came to slide my food tray under the door. Telek was not on duty. I had not seen him in 3 days. I was worried. I said softly, Mark. He paused. Is Telek okay? There was a long silence. Then Mark said in barely a whisper, Telek has been taken to the healers. He laughed in the hallway yesterday in front of an officer. They are trying to fix him. My heart sank. Mark, listen to me. Whatever they are doing to him, it will not work. They cannot unlaugh him. He has crossed a line and there is no going back. But they can hurt him trying. Is there any way you can get him a message? Mark was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, If I bring you paper, could you write a thing? I will deliver it. Yes, I can write a thing. He brought me a small flat sheet of gray material and a thin stylus hidden under my food tray. I wrote on it carefully. I wrote, Telek, hold on, we are coming. The wall is cracking. You did not do anything wrong. You did the most right thing a person can do. Knock, knock. The answer is we are leaving, I promise. I slid the paper back under the door. Mark took it. Then very softly, just before he walked away, Mark whispered, knock, knock. I felt my eyes fill up. I whispered back, who is there? He paused, then he said, I do not know yet. I am still learning, but I will find out. He walked away. I lay back on the floor of my cell and looked up at the ceiling and felt something I had not felt since I was a small child looking up at the stars. I felt sure, deep in my chest, that something very big was about to happen and that we were going to be okay. Not because we were strong, but because we had brought something with us that this empire had never planned for. We had brought ourselves, and ourselves, it turned out, was enough. It was 3 a.m, station time, when the door of my cell opened by itself. I sat up fast. I had been half asleep on the cold floor. I rubbed my eyes. The door was open. There was no guard outside. The hallway was dim and quiet. A figure stepped into my doorway. It was Mevria, the chief architect, the one with the gold collar. She was wearing not a white robe but a plain gray suit like a worker. Her 4 eyes were red. Get up, Jake, she said softly. We are leaving. I stared at her. What? The High Command has issued the order. You and your crew are to be ended in 6 hours. I cannot allow it. I have spoken to Inquisitor Vassorin. I have spoken to 17 other staff and soldiers. We have decided. We are getting you off this station tonight. Mevria, are you sure? You will lose everything. She gave me a small, strange smile. It was the first smile I had ever seen her wear. It looked uncertain on her face, like a coat she had never worn before. Jake, I am already losing everything. I cannot go back to who I was 3 weeks ago. The thing your people have given me cannot be returned, so I might as well use it. She helped me up. We hurried down the hallway. Cells were opening one by one. Captain Brooks stepped out, then Lucy, then Walter, then the others. We did not speak. We just nodded at each other and followed Mevria. At the end of the hall, Telek was waiting. He looked tired. He had a bandage on his forehead, but his 4 eyes were bright. He held a small device in his hand that he had used to override the cell locks. Jake, he said, his voice breaking with emotion. Knock, knock. I felt tears well up. Who is there, buddy? He smiled. It was a small, unsure smile, but it was real. The answer is, we are leaving. I hugged him. I hugged that thin gray alien with my whole body. He stiffened for a second. He had never been hugged before. Then his thin arms went around me too, and he held on tight. Telek, are you all right? They took you to the healers. They tried. The healers cannot fix what is not broken. I told them this. They tried for 2 days. Then they gave up and locked me in a small room. Mevria got me out tonight. We hurried on. Behind Telek were others. Mark, the young guard, Inquisitor Vassorin himself, looking pale and shaken in plain clothes, a medical officer named Drell, a senior cook named Hess, 8 Virathari in total, all of them carrying small bags, all of them leaving behind everything they had ever known. We rushed through the station. Mevria led us down service hallways. She had clearly planned this for some time. We met no guards. The few we did pass had been told to take that night off by Mevria's orders. They did not know why their orders had been changed. They never would. We reached the docking bay. The lighthouse was sitting there, untouched, its outer hull still scraped from the tractor beam. Walter let out a small, happy sound at the sight of his ship. He patted her hull as we walked past. But before we reached the boarding ramp, we hit a problem. A patrol of 6 guards was crossing the docking bay floor. They were not supposed to be there. Their schedules had been confused by all the redirection orders. They saw us. They froze. We froze. The lead guard raised his weapon. Halt! Identify yourselves. Mevria stepped forward. She held up her gold collar. I am Chief Architect Mevria. I am moving these prisoners on a priority black order from the High Council. "Stand down." The lead guard hesitated. Priority black was a real thing. He did not want to challenge a gold collar, but he also did not see any council members nearby, and his orders were clear. "Architect, with respect, we have no record of a priority black. We need to verify." Mevria's hands were shaking. She had not prepared for this. The other defectors looked at each other in panic. And then, from the edge of the docking bay, came the sound that changed everything. It was a low rumble, a growing rumble like footsteps. The doors at the far end of the docking bay slid open. Through them walked, not a patrol, not a strike team, but 40 Virathari soldiers and workers. They were not wearing armor. They were wearing their off-duty clothes. Some of them looked sleepy, like they had just been pulled out of bed. Some of them looked nervous. But they all walked together in a steady line, and at the front of them was a face I knew. It was a young soldier I had seen once or twice in the hallway named Vask. Lucy had been doing impressions for a small group of off-duty staff in a side hall for over a week now. Word had spread quietly. People came when they could. They listened. They went home and told a friend. The friend came the next time, and the next. It had grown. Vask stepped forward. He looked at the patrol. He held up his hands. "We are not here to fight," he said. "We are here to be heard. The humans are leaving. We are letting them leave. Stand aside, brothers." The lead patrol guard stared at him. "Vask, you are off duty. You have no authority here. Step back." "I cannot. None of us can. We have all been listening. We have all been thinking. And we cannot keep doing the work we have been doing." One of the patrol guards lowered his weapon. He said in a confused voice, "Vask, what is happening?" Vask said softly, "The humans told us a thing. They told us that we are allowed to feel two things at once. They told us we are allowed to be afraid and brave. They told us we are allowed to be sad and hopeful. They told us we are allowed to laugh. They did not lie to us. None of it is wrongness. All of it is us. We have been small for 40,000 years. They have shown us how to be bigger. We are going to let them go home, and we are going to face whatever comes next together." The patrol guards looked at each other. Slowly, one by one, they lowered their weapons. The lead guard kept his up the longest, but finally even he lowered it. He looked very tired. "My son," he said quietly, "made the choking sound last week. I told him to stop. He cried. I told him to stop crying too. He went to his sleeping space and would not come out for 2 days. I have not slept since." Vask walked over and put his hand on the older guard's shoulder. "Take him to the gardens tomorrow. Tell him you are sorry. Make a sound with him. Try." The older guard's 4 eyes filled with wetness. He nodded slowly. We had no time to lose. Mevria hurried us up the ramp into the lighthouse. Lucy ran to the pilot's seat. Walter ran to check the engines. The defectors crowded into our small medical bay, the only place with extra seats. Captain Brooks stood at the airlock and looked back at the docking bay. The 40 off-duty staff were standing in a long line, waving us off. Some of them were crying. Some of them were making small, choked sounds. One of them was outright laughing for the first time in his life, and he looked terrified and delighted at the same time, and his neighbor was patting him on the back as if he had just been born. Captain Brooks gave them a salute, a real military salute. Then he stepped inside and the airlock closed and the lighthouse roared to life. We blasted out of the docking bay. The Virathari giant ship saw us go, of course. Alarms went off. The voice of Over-Commander ZHK Tal came over our radio. "Lighthouse, power down, return to the station. You have no chance of escape. We will catch you in seconds." Lucy leaned into the radio. "Hi, yeah, quick thing. Your chief architect, your inquisitor, 2 of your medical officers, and a senior cook are sitting in our medical bay right now. If you fire on this ship, you fire on them too. So, use your words. Maybe call your supervisor. We will wait." There was a long silence on the radio. Then ZHK Tal said, in a voice I had not heard before, a voice that was almost human in its sadness, "Architect Mevria, are you on that ship by your own choice?" Mevria leaned into the radio. Her voice was steady. I am Overcommander. I am leaving with these humans. I do not expect you to understand. I do not expect to come back. But I want you to know one thing. The choking sound is not sick. It is the most healthy thing I have ever heard. 40,000 years of fear has been the wrongness all this time. We just did not know. Architect, reconsider. The Empire needs you. The Empire needs to learn how to laugh. I cannot teach it from a desk. I have to go and learn first myself. I am sorry, ZHK Tao. I truly am. Please tell my mother I love her. She used to sing to me before I was assigned to the Quelmorim. Tell her I remember the song now. Tell her I am not afraid anymore. The radio was silent for a very long time. Then ZHK Tao said, in a voice so quiet we almost missed it, Go safely, Architect. The pursuit will be slow. Repairs will be needed. Many repairs. It may take some time. We all understood. He was letting us go. Without saying he was letting us go, because saying it would have ended his career. But not saying it would only end our pursuers' careers, and only some of them. Lucy fired the engines to full burn. The lighthouse leapt forward. We were free. Behind us, in the docking bay, in the hallways, in the cells, on the warship and on the research station, and in places we would never see, the 40,000-year-old wall was already crumbling. Not from outside, from inside. People were teaching each other knock-knock jokes in whispers. People were waving at cleaning robots. People were crying and smiling at the same time and discovering that their faces would not break. The wrongness was spreading. The wrongness was good. 8 months later, I was sitting on a couch in my apartment in Houston. The apartment looked the same as I had left it. My cat, Whiskers, had been taken care of by my mother, who had also kept my plants alive and my mail in a neat pile by the door. She had cried a lot when I came home. I had cried too. But on the couch beside me was Telek. He was watching an old Earth movie. It was a black and white movie with 3 brothers in it who hit each other with cooking pans for laughs. I do not know why I had picked that one. It just felt right. Telek was laughing so hard that tears were running down his thin gray face. He laughed silently for the first 3 months he was on Earth. The sound came back slowly. Now, 8 months in, his laugh was loud and clear and shameless, and the cat had gotten used to it. Lucy was in the kitchen, on the phone, planning her tour. She was scheduled to perform stand-up comedy at 6 different alien embassies over the next 2 months. The ambassadors had specifically requested her. She had told me she was going to do a bit about the orange in the fake disaster movie. I had laughed for 10 minutes. Walter was teaching a cooking class in the basement of the local community center. His students included Mevria, who had taken the human name Maeve, and had moved to a small town in Vermont where she was learning how to bake bread. She wrote me letters. She still cried easily, but she also laughed more than any human I knew. The 2 of them coexisted in her now. She was, as she had said in our first meeting, a person who could hold both colors. Inquisitor Vassorin, now going by Vincent, ran a podcast. The podcast was about being wrong for a long time and how to start again. It had, last I checked, 2 million listeners. He read every email he received. He cried at most of them. He laughed at the rest. Captain Brooks had retired. He spent his days fishing on a lake in Michigan. He had told me the last time I visited him that he had not stopped thinking about the docking bay, about the older guard whose son had cried. He hoped that guard had taken his son to the gardens. He hoped they had laughed together. We did not know. We would probably never know. But Captain Brooks said with that quiet smile of his, "Hope is a thing you carry, Jake. It does not always come back to you. But you carry it anyway." The Virathari Empire had not fallen, not in the way old wars fall. There were no battles. There was no surrender. Instead, the empire was changing, slowly, painfully, beautifully. Every day, more and more of its people learned the choking sound. Every day, the fear control on its 800 client species grew thinner. Every day, a few more people, somewhere out there in the wide, dark sky, learned that they were allowed to feel 2 things at once. They were allowed to be themselves. The galaxy had spent 40,000 years agreeing that fear was the only language. We had taught it in less than a year that there was a much older and much deeper one. A language that lived in choked sounds, in shaking shoulders, in the moment between a tear and a smile. A language that did not need to be invented. It was already inside everyone. They had only forgotten how to speak it. I sat on my couch with my cat in my lap and Telek laughing beside me and the smell of Walter's banana bread coming up from the basement, and I thought about Big Pete, the asteroid, the first thing the Virathari had ever ended on our side. I thought about my favorite mug, the one shaped like a frog, that had been on Big Pete when it disappeared. I would never get that mug back. That was a real loss, a small one in the grand scheme, but real. And I missed it and I was happy. I was scared of what came next and I was hopeful. I was tired and I was alive. I was a human being. I was allowed. And out there, somewhere, on 1,000 worlds, more and more people were learning that they were allowed too. That was the secret. That was always the secret. The Empire had expected fear. It had built its entire long history on fear. But fear was never the strongest thing in the galaxy. The strongest thing in the galaxy was a small choked sound that came out of a young soldier's throat in a quiet hallway when he heard a joke he was not supposed to hear. That sound was free. That sound was infinite. That sound once made could never be unmade. And reader, somewhere in the dark, right now, somebody is making it for the very first time. The end.